What's up, grinders? Welcome back to the channel. So this is my fourth video in my series on learning Spanish via Dreaming Spanish, which is essentially the ALG method. Now, if you have a look here, I've already released 4 videos. This is when I first talked about it and time investment wise, and then I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna do it myself, and then I can give you guys a realistic idea of how long this actually takes. I had my 50-hour update, 100-hour update, and now we are at my currently 150-hour update. As right here you can see, I literally just clicked over the 150 mark. Now, I did my last video, I think, let me just go back. We're going to step back to here. I think it was around here somewhere. So around April, and then you'll notice that in May, I completely stopped. Now, this was not because like I gave up on the process. No, this was because I traveled to China, and while I was in China, I was primarily focused on improving my Chinese, and I just put this to the wayside because this is an experiment that I do on the side after I've done my other languages. But then you can see as I got back, I started getting back into it, and then I've gotten pretty back into it in the last week. As you can see, I've clocked up like 3 hours per day, and I'll talk about why I'm starting to clock up more time in a minute. I'm at the 150 hours mark. Now, I want to address a couple of things. So in my previous videos, because I'm not sold on this as like the best method to learn a language, I'm very upfront about that. I say to you guys, this is my beliefs, but as like a kind of like an amateur scientist who likes to try out different methodologies on himself, I actually go through and try these things out, but I'm very upfront about it. I'm not like one of those people who's come in, I'm sold on the method already, and now I'm doing it and I'm sharing my experiences with you. I'm actually quite the opposite in a lot of ways, and that has caused a lot of shit within the comments. Like people constantly like saying I'm doing this wrong, I'm doing that wrong. So let's see if I'm actually doing it wrong. I'm at 150 hours right now. Let's see what it says I should be able to do at 150 hours. I just hit level 3. So according to this, I know 1,500 words. I have no idea if I actually know that many words. It's very hard to say because like a lot of the words that I've picked up along the way are cognates of Esperanto and English and even a tiny bit of Latin in there. So what you can do, you can now understand people if they stay within certain topics. I would say that's probably true if those topics are the topics that have been discussed here on Dreaming Spanish. They still need to talk to you in a way that's appropriate for you, but you know many words and you don't rely exclusively on visual information. I think this last part's probably the most important part, relying exclusively on visual information, because up until about the 100-hour mark, and you'll see this in my previous video, I was saying like, you know, I'm pretty much surviving on cognates at this stage, but I didn't mention the fact, and this was true at the time, that pretty much I needed visual cues. Now, I am at the point where I've kind of absorbed enough words that I don't always need visual cues. I can actually get through like some entire like conversations without any visual cues. But again, they're very, very simple conversations. And I'll give you guys an example of that in a minute, like a realistic example. So you still aren't completely used to the sounds of the language. That's totally true. In fact, one thing I've always struggled with is the rolled R. I tried to learn it long before Spanish because I wanted to apply it to Latin. And I've always struggled with it. So like, for example, the word dog is like perro. Perro. Like, I have to really, really focus on it if I want to get it. And even then, it sounds like not as good as like a, you know, a Spanish speaker. So I'm actually curious. And by the way, I'm not intentionally speaking at the moment. I know everyone gets annoyed at me when I pronounce words, like who are like hardcore Dreaming Spanish fanatics. They're like, you shouldn't be trying to speak yet. I'm just speaking only in these videos. Otherwise, these videos would be completely boring. I'm pretty certain that speaking a tiny bit of Spanish for like 5 minutes is not going to destroy the entire process, guys. I'm just giving you an example. Now, I'm hoping that when I do approach, let's say 1,000 hours or whatever, I will be able to somehow magically improve my R sound. Like, I don't know if that's a thing. Like, I don't know if that can just happen according to this method. Like, does my R just improve because I'm hearing it constantly from native speakers? I don't know. Because I've also read, you know, previously that there's even people in Spain who grew up there who struggle with the R sound all their life. So I'm very curious to see how that goes for me in the long run. Next, you have a good intuition for basic grammar like sentence order. You can sometimes feel it when other learners make mistakes. Now, I do have a good intuition of grammar, but that's because I've studied grammar of other languages before. So this is not, unfortunately, when I come into this like test, you know, trying this all out, I didn't come in as like a newbie who knows nothing about languages. Like, I do have an instinctive understanding of grammar. Now, what they're saying here is good intuition for basic grammar, they mean of Spanish. So, like, I've picked up on basic grammar in Spanish in some ways. Like, for example, adjectives come after nouns. There's some type of gender-based system. I know the endings of verbs change. From my understanding, the ending of a verb, like, ends in "o" when it's, like, from first-person perspective, but maybe "e" when talking about third-person perspective. Not too sure. Then there's "os," which is, like, plural. And I think that's also based around gender. I don't know too much because I haven't studied like Spanish grammar, and I've intentionally avoided it up until this point, and I can do that. I know a lot of you people are also surprised about the fact that I've managed to avoid Spanish. I live in Australia, guys. There's not many people here speak Spanish. There's not many countries around me that speak Spanish. Like here, if you're going to learn a language, you're going to learn an East Asian language. You only learn like these European languages or, you know, American languages, you know, languages from the Americas, if you have an interest in them. But if it's for like economic reasons, there's no reason to learn pretty much any of those European languages. Anyway, it sounds wrong somehow. You can now say quite a few words, and that will already be useful when traveling in the country. Now, as you can see, they don't really give you too much information here, and they just say what you basically got to do is just still a lot more listening, you know, and you're going to continue that listening until you hit level 4, which is I've got to get to 300 hours, okay. So, can I say some words and things? Yeah, that's true. In fact, last night, I had my first Spanish dream, just randomly out of the blue, okay. So, I know it was a Spanish dream because I remember hearing Spanish in it, and it sounded like Spanish. Like, obviously, this is a dream, guys. But also, I remember specific words from it. Like, I remember, for example, hearing them say stuff like, what is it? It's, entonces or entonces. I don't know. Después. And then friggin', what's some other ones that come on? Muchísimos and friggin' no sé. You know, these types of things. Like, they're kind of randomly popping into my head now, more and more. But, like, my pronunciation's obviously, in all of those instances, completely off the mark. But, like, they are popping into my head. And I am starting to pick up, like, all the different types of conjunctions and time words. But it is very interesting about the words that I haven't picked up. Like, I know the word for right. Like, I can't even say it, but I can recognize it. And unless I get a visual indication, I don't know the word for left. That's strange. Like, it just doesn't come to me. I've only just, I'd say within the last 5 hours or so, picked up on the word for tomorrow. Do I know the word for yesterday? I don't even think I know the word for yesterday. But then I know a ton of random like nouns for like all sorts of objects. And also probably a lot of descriptive adjectives, both, you know, based around colors and then also based around feelings. So I've picked up on a lot of those as well. But like words that you would think you would know if you're following a traditional course, you know, like today, tomorrow, yesterday, and things like that, I haven't picked up on. However, I have picked up on locations, you know, like for above and below and stuff like that, you know. All these types of words I've picked up on because it's based on the type of content I'm absorbing, which is mainly people just pointing at stuff around them and talking, and usually talking in the present tense and not actually talking about, you know, the future and the past, although I'm starting to get more and more of that content now. Another thing is, if you guys watch my other videos on this channel, you've probably seen me at some points bitch like to no end about how this pisses me off, like how my progression is. Because there was a period, I'm going to say from like 100 to 150 hours, well, not 100 to 150, 100 to 140, around there, where there felt like absolutely zero progression, and the material Dreaming Spanish gives you for the beginner level, around that level, is, I'll just be completely honest, guys, is boring as hell. However, at the 150 mark, I've started to see like a bump in my comprehension. I've started watching the more advanced beginner videos because there's clearly in the beginner category, it's not just they're all the same level. There's some that's really easy, and then there's some that's like quite hard for a beginner. And those quite hard ones are the more interesting ones. Like they're the ones that can actually allow me to watch content for longer and not feel bored off my tits. And finally, I'm starting to be able to understand and watch that stuff without getting a headache. So you'll notice here, I've gone from like like 85 minutes there, then 79, 138, 186, 188, and then 191 today, okay? Which is a lot of time I've spent on Spanish this week, which is kind of crazy considering I'm comparing for exams for another language, and then, you know, I'm also continuing my Chinese studies, and then I also work full-time and run a YouTube channel. So how did I manage to like do that? Well, because the content is no longer boring and I'm able to insert it into my life at the most random times, you know, like when I'm in the toilet, when I go for a walk, when I'm having lunch at work type of thing, before work, you know, instead of waking up and just like scrolling on whatever, like, what was it? Like I used to scroll. I don't know. I used to scroll on YouTube. That's what I used to do. Now I'm actually just watching content when I wake up for about an hour. And then after work, I'll do about an hour. And before you know it, you start clocking up some time when the content's actually like worth your time watching. So I feel like as of now, I'm probably going to be hitting several hours per day, which means that the next update at 200 hours is probably going to come within like about a month if I continue this, you know, at this kind of rate that I've got going right now. But then again, it may slow down a little bit because I am preparing for a C1 exam for Esperanto, and that's going to consume more of my time and focus over the next month. So that's pretty much what I've got going here. Now, what I like to do is also show you guys a real life example of me watching some content, and I'm going to try real-time translate it for you guys. And you guys can laugh at, you know, my bad translations and stuff, and if you watch my previous update here where it's like at 100 hours, I actually watch a gaming Let's Play, and let's just say that some of my translations weren't the best, okay? I now know the difference between scary and shit in Spanish. For all those who have been laughing at me all this time, trust me, when it clicked, I understood why you're all laughing, and screw you guys for laughing at me in the comments, okay? But I do know the difference between those words. Like, I can audibly hear the difference now. Okay, so let's go find a video. So, I'm going to try to pick something where there might be a conversation between several people, but without visual cues. And the reason being is because I don't want to rely too much on the visuality of what's going on here, and to give you guys a realistic like understanding of what I understand at this point. This or that gadget. Okay, let's watch this one. Now, obviously, I'm not going to watch too much of this, and the reason being is because this is a paid service, and I don't want to be, you know, taking money away from them. So we're just going to use like a fraction of this. So let's just jump somewhere to where there's a new picture. Okay, we'll go. Okay, there's going to be visual cues. We're just going to deal with it, guys. Okay, let's go here.
Para matar.
So she literally just said like to kill someone.
Depende, Agustina.
Of course, depending, Augustina.
Depende. No sé.
So, I don't know.
A mí me gustan mucho las tijeras.
So, to me, I really like, and I'm pretty sure she said the scissors, but that word hasn't quite clicked.
Yo antes coleccionaba tijeras. Tenía muchas tijeras.
So, she's saying, like, previously I collected a lot of, I'm guessing, scissors.
Wow.
Sí, entonces elijo tijeras.
So I'm gonna choose the first one, A.
Mm-hmm. A mí me gusta tener cuchillos en mi cocina.
So she likes to have knives in her kitchen.
Muchos cuchillos diferentes.
Lots of different types, obviously.
Ah, para cocinar.
For, I believe that means cooking. And the fact that laugh just did not like what's she using the knives for?
Yo pienso que sí.
She says yes, I think so.
Okay, vale.
She's like not okay, you know, like, because male is like bad, but like it's obvious, that's obviously not a proper translation for it. I think it just means like okay.
Perfecto. Celular o computadora.
Obviously asking about a phone or the computer.
A ver, no sé, porque un celular es como un computador pequeño.
She's saying she doesn't know because a phone is basically just a small computer.
Sí.
Pero con el computador puedes hacer cosas como trabajar.
Sí.
And she's saying, but with a computer you can do things like working.
¿Sabes? Editar.
You know, editing.
Sí.
Otras cosas.
Other things.
No sé. Si mi trabajo no fuera de creación de contenido, yo elegiría el celular.
So she said something about if her work's not this, and I didn't quite understand it, she would choose the phone.
Pero creo que el computador, sí, sí.
So she's saying she thinks the computer.
Ok, muy bien, muy bien. Yo pienso que el celular es pequeño y puedes llevarlo a todos lados fácilmente.
So she's saying, because the phone is small, you can take it to, and I'm not sure what that last word was, but probably like places.
El computador, la computadora, es grande y a veces un poco pesada.
Yeah, and the computer's big and it's like a little bit heavy.
Un poco pesada.
Okay, so we've looked at this video. Let's look at another video, okay, now. So whether or not, let's go with Japanese weddings and couples.
Esto es un santuario.
So that is a santuario. So I'm guessing that is visually what it is.
Y hacen algo llamado boda Shinto.
So she also says it also has another name, which is a wedding, like a Shinto wedding.
En esta boda,
So in this wedding,
los novios usan ropa
the people who are getting married use like clothing, but it's not clothing so much. Yeah, it is clothing actually.
ropa especial.
Obviously, they're using special clothing.
La novia usa un vestido blanco.
And then she's using vestido, I'm assuming means like dress, and then it's a white one.
Que se llama shiromuku.
And it's called chiromuku.
Y el novio usa un traje negro tradicional
And the guy who's getting married, he uses this black traditional one
llamado monsuki.
called monsuki.
Monsuki. La ceremonia empieza con un sacerdote que limpia.
So the ceremony happens with one sacerdote, I'm guessing that's him, and then she's talking about cleaning.
Limpia a los novios con una rama.
Okay, so he cleans the people who are getting married with this thing. So you guys get an idea right now. It's like I'm starting to get enough of the individual words to be able to put together the rest of the sentence that I don't understand. And because I'm getting the main like words that are connecting the sentences together, I'm able to actually start picking up a lot more nouns and adjectives actually in context now. Although there is still some confusion and I still like mess up understanding of words and stuff like that. So I get the feeling that overall at this point, I'm going to start speeding up. Like I'll be able to start doing more and more hours and I'm going to start enjoying the content more. Now, according to level 3, I should be entering into intermediate dreaming Spanish videos, which is the next level up from these videos here. Because if you have a look, I'm basically, let's go levels and then go intermediate. The problem is I did try watch a couple of these at, what was it? It was like 5 hours ago. And although the speed, because they speed up quite a bit when you hit the intermediate range, the speed didn't bother me at all. If I knew the words, I just instantly understood them. The problem was that I feel like I'm still lacking too many words to move into intermediate, and I might need to spend another like 10, maybe 20 hours in the beginner range doing those harder beginner ones before I can truly move on to the intermediate. But I am starting to get excited now because the topics are starting to get a little bit more interesting compared to that first 140 hours, which was, by God, the most boring crap that I've watched in a very, very long time. And that's, I would say that's not realistically the fault of the actors, I'm going to call them, that are making the videos. It's just because the language is so limited, there's so little you can actually do with it, which is of interest. Well, that's pretty much it, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this video and you're going to stick around for further updates, and I'll see you all in the next video. And if you're not there, I will find you in your dreams and I will impale you with a pair of scissors.